Hello and welcome. Today we are in the Tier 7 German battleship, the Gneisenau. We're playing a ranked match on the map New Dawn. It is the last of the Ranked is Too Hard series for this season. And I started going towards the sea cap, as I mentioned last match with the Synop, or last video, that I really like the idea of being able to flank. However, the team decided on A and B, so I decided against going towards the going wide on C, because I wouldn't have any support and the battleship that's alone is probably going to be hunted down by a destroyer, or at least the life of the battleship will be made so difficult that the BB cannot really help the team. The enemy is actually flanking, we'll find that out in a moment. There's two battleships in front of us, the Synop and the Nelson, and the other Synop is near C, as you can see right now. Now our team is focusing on the A and B caps, which is actually not a bad idea, because if you all go on one side, it's possible you might be able to punch through the enemy quickly enough, or isolate some of the enemy ships on them. Like, take the enemy Fiji right now, right? If you look at where the Fiji is, there's a good chance that we might be able to isolate her. Sure, the Fiji can decide to turn away, but she won't be actually fighting purely based on our ship's positioning. Now, the problem is, though, that while we do take all the caps, we don't have the ability to crossfire, whereas the enemy does. So this might end up in meaning that we cannot actually engage the enemy properly, and they will simply outdamage us. The other problem is that our French destroyer actually decided to go wide for whatever reason instead of trying to push more into the cap. The way the French DD is playing, that's okay if your team isn't all going basically into one cap. However, we are, which means that we hold the firepower advantage here. If she would run into another destroyer, we should be able to take that out. Now on the other side of the map, something really good happened to us. The Fiji went to block the sea cap, and she actually got the destroyer out of that. For free, basically. I mean, the Fiji probably did take damage and all, but we blocked them getting the cap. And the Fiji actually sank the destroyer. Yeah, the Fiji got punished for it by the Synop. She really probably shouldn't have pushed out there for the Synop, but I mean, maybe she was hoping that the Synop just couldn't, take her out. Because if you think about it, even if the Fiji had tried to delay and stayed longer over there, it's not like it would have made too much of a difference, because there was nothing that would actually back up the Fiji. The Synop would simply round the corner at some point, and then it would be too late. But right now we do hold the points advantage due to the amazing job the Fiji did by taking out the DD and blocking the cap. And we do hold the caps advantage as well, which means that we are quite far ahead at this point. Especially when we're dealing damage to that New Orleans and holding off the enemy Fiji and whatnot. This is good news for us. Now the downside is that the destroyer they have left is a Gajah-Mada, and Gajah-Mada has deep water torpedoes which have very good concealment. And this makes them very dangerous to battleships, more dangerous than other torpedoes at this tier. And because of that, I am not sure if I want to push into this. It would be good if one of our destroyers pushed into it, and I would try to follow them, but because the DDs are being very passive, I don't think it makes sense for one of the battleships to push here. And unfortunately, Gneisenau will absolutely lose a fight against the Synop and the Nelson. It's just not something that... The ship isn't meant to do these kinds of long-range exchanges with ships like Synop and Nelson. You are eventually going to lose this. But I mean, our destroyers can torp, and that can help us out. But overall, I think I should start heading towards the other side of the map, because it's pretty obvious by now that there's only the Synop over there, and, well, close-range fights with ships like Synops by Gneisenau absolutely work out. And if the Synop doesn't have destroyer support, which we already know she doesn't, because the destroyer was taken out by the Fiji, that should be a very good fight for me. And hopefully that will allow us to gain some kind of an advantage. But who knows? It'll take quite a while for me to get there, and, the the match might itself change. But while I'm sailing over there, I can at least deal damage to the Synop. It's not like my damage dealing ability is affected while I'm sailing towards that other Synop, right? I'm still able to shell out just as much as I would like. And sure, maybe I'll be 1 kilometer closer, but if I were to fight on this side, but it's not that big of a difference. It's mostly just the damage just isn't there because, well, Gneisenau isn't the greatest ship for these kinds of things. But still, we are maintaining our lead pretty well. We have 300 points on the enemy, we have a ship's advantage, and we have the cap's advantage. This, basically everything you can imagine is going for us. Oh, and the enemy is also rather split, which is very good for us. Well, the destroyer going down on our team is not very good though, but we do still have our Jarvis, and I trust this Jarvis to do decently well. And if I can surprise the Synop, that'll go well. Unfortunately, there's a Fiji coming with me, and I don't understand why. I asked the Fiji what he thinks he's doing, because I think this is a huge mistake. Because if we're around the corner and Synop is there, who do you think is gonna go down first? It's gonna be the Fiji, right? Synop can't do much to me, but she can absolutely sink the Fiji. And I don't know what the Fiji is thinking. This can only end... Like, the only way this doesn't end poorly is if the Synop has turned around, in which case I'm gonna be useless. Oh, okay, never mind. Synop is right there, wow. And there goes the Fiji. I have no idea what he expected would happen. Anyway, this is actually somewhat difficult situation. I could torp here. I don't actually know why I don't. I really should. Oh, never mind, I do. I probably should have torped slightly earlier though, because now the Synop can turn quite a lot. But then again, I'll hit some torps anyway. Never mind, I hit all of them, but this doesn't actually delete the Synop, and I need another set. However, the good thing is that as long as I keep my nose pointed towards the Synop, she can't really punish me. Because, well, the Gneisenau has an icebreaker, and that means that the Synop will simply bounce. And sadly, the torps weren't actually enough. However, there's nothing the Synop can really do to win this kind of engagement at this point, because she has to show broadside to fire her front guns. Well, a little bit of broadside. That was a mistake on my part, because I hit the torp protection belt and then bounced. However, this Synop is absolutely going to be gone now, and that will give us the battleship advantage. However, we are not actually looking so great now, because while this was happening, we did lose the B-cap, and while we're still alive and whatnot, I mean, my ship is still alive. I mean, ships-wise we're equal, but they have 2 cruisers, and they hold the cap's advantage now. And unfortunately, the Gneisenau is probably the worst battleship at this tier to deal with cruisers. If you get close range, you end up getting over-penetrations all the time. And that's, you know, if you can actually hit the ship. However, battleships like the Synop and Nelson on my team are actually pretty good for this. Unfortunately, the positioning of our battleships is not that great. It's very likely that the Jarvis that's basically supporting me would be needed by the Synop. Yeah, there's the Gajamada, and she has 390 HP, which is not much, but if you never get hit as a destroyer, well, that's enough. And the Synop is rounding the corner, which means that the Synop is probably going to get torped and die. And sadly, that puts us at a disadvantage, and the enemy holds all 3 cap zones. I'm gonna try some random shells, expecting the Gajamada to move. If I get a lucky 1 shell, all it takes is 1 shell, and the Gajamada is gone, but unfortunately, I didn't succeed. Now, we're playing from behind. Remember how basically all the advantages were on our side? Well, now it's the other way around. Except, I guess, the points. I mean, yeah, the enemy technically has fewer ships, But they hold all 3 cap zones and they still have a destroyer. I mean, we have a destroyer too. However, our destroyer is currently busy fighting or doing a standoff with 2 cruisers, and unfortunately I don't think I'm a very good ship to try to dissuade the cruisers from pushing. Because I cannot just delete battle or cruisers every time. There's a good chance that I will simply just whiff the shells. Oh god, and she disappeared too. That's not great. I still think that firing at the Gajah Mada was more important. I am turning away here because it's too dangerous to go close. Because I feel like if we lose my ship now, due to torps from a Fiji, I think this can end up going very poorly. Because we still have to contend with the Gajah Mada. And the Gajah Mada absolutely sank our Sinop, because the Sinop did actually go around the corner despite knowing that there's a Gajah Mada over there. I don't know what he was thinking. But now, ships-wise, we're equal. And this is basically what I was afraid of. And they hold all 3 cap zones. So we basically need to do something. I haven't been spotted in a while, so if I round the corner or around the island here, I think I'll be fine. Sure, I just got spotted now, but it means that there won't be torps here, or there's a very, very low chance that there will be torpedoes here. And there's the Fiji. Did you see that dispersion just now? That's exactly what I mean, that it's difficult to punish a cruiser with the Gneisenau. Sometimes dispersion just says no. And sadly, this actually took out our Jarvis. Now the Fiji has an easy time to turn and torp me. I will try to preempt that by turning when the Fiji turns. I'm already turning in, as you can see, half rudder already. And there goes the Fiji. And there are the torps, and we have avoided them. I should have probably taken one of these torps if the Fiji had aimed the torp slightly better, but that would have still been okay. The problem is we still need to contest with a Gajah Mada, and we only have 2 battleships. And Gajah Mada's torps are... You're not going to dodge them based on spotting them. You have to preempt those torpedoes. So knowing when you're spotted and when your ship is not spotted is vital. Like right now my ship is not spotted, which means that Gajah Mada doesn't know exactly where I am. So the chance that I will be torped when rounding an island is very, very low. And it also means that I probably don't have to worry about being torped by torp. That is, I don't need to do evasive action when turning. Now I got spotted by the New Orleans. That's okay. This is actually really, really good because this allows me to... Okay, excellent. This time I got lucky, got the Citadel. I am unspotted again. This is incredibly important information. Like, dealing with the New Orleans was great and all, but that would have happened regardless. Right, we have 2 battleships. But the fact that I'm unspotted right now is very, very important, because it means there is no Gajah Mada between me and the Nelson, in the line of sight. Right, my concealment is 13. Okay, so I got spotted right now. So there's a good chance the destroyer is to the east of me. Oh, sorry, east, to the 3 o'clock position, between 2 and 3 o'clocks. Basically, roughly where the pings were, right? Not exactly, because that would be behind the island, but roughly over there. Now I'm unspotted, which means that the destroyer is probably behind the island. So the question is, which island? Is it the one, is it that one or the other one? The bigger one? Because it could be both. Maybe the destroyer went around to try to cap C, or maybe she is still going after the Nelson. My plan here is to simply get closer so that the Nelson just won't suddenly get rushed by the destroyer. I mean, okay, she's not going to get rushed in that sense, but maybe the destroyer will pop up for a moment. And knowing when I'm spotted and when I'm not is very, very important. I was spotted earlier, this is why I'm doing the turn that I'm doing. The idea is that I wish to use this island to turn around, because I think the island will give me cover. And once I've turned around, I will simply sail away. I don't think getting the A-cap is actually that important. I think there's also a very good chance that the Nelson is being torped by the Gajah Mada, but because of where I am and because of where the Nelson is, there's a very, very, very high chance that the destroyer is not going to be on the Nelson's broadside. Like, she's going to be torping her from behind. I am unspotted again, RPF is on me, this is also very good information. Like, if me and the Nelson were communicating about when we're spotted and unspotted and when RPF is on us and not on us, we probably could basically narrow down where the destroyer is very, very well. And the information I have is already enough for me to know that if I sail away at this point, the destroyer will never catch up to me. And dodging torpedoes while you're sailing away makes it quite easy, even if they're very low detection torps like the deep water torpedoes on the Gajah Mada. I think what the Nelson is doing is incredibly stupid right now, because she's turning around and, well, is basically heading towards the DD. This gives the DD more opportunity to torp. I mean, I can understand doing those kinds of maneuvers if you can't even survive a single torpedo, but I think our Nelson could survive at least one of them, so sailing away would be much more beneficial. But I don't think it matters at this point, because if I simply sail away from the destroyer, that's going to be good enough to win this game. Still, I really shouldn't be in a position to have to cap 2 bases, sink 3 ships, and then sail away from a destroyer to win the game through cap points, right? This really shouldn't have happened. Especially considering how much ahead we were at the start of the game. We absolutely threw the game for a while there. But at this point, the game is over, and I'm actually surprised the Gajah Mada hasn't tried anything. Like, she hasn't tried to cap any of the bases or do anything like that. She basically seems to have tried to just, I don't know, torp the Nelson. Anyway, the Jarvis deserves a compliment, because he did try really well, and he fought the cruisers well. It's just I got really unlucky on the first salvo on that Fiji. But hey, we still won, so that's good enough. But seriously, how often do you have to solo cap 2 bases as a battleship in a ranked match? Not that often. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I would like to thank the patrons on Patreon. Thank you very much for your continued support, and I hope I'll see you guys next time.